Good morning, Geometry ELT. Today is Monday, and we're starting off our week with some coordinate plane practice. After you do your coordinate plane, you're going to solve some multi-step equations. So keep in mind the steps. We look for parentheses. Then we look to combine like terms. We move the variable to one side, and then we solve for the variable using inverse operations. So in number 2, I don't have any parentheses, but I do have an x here and an 7x here. Those are like terms. So I'm going to combine them. I get 8x minus 4 equals 8x minus 4. Then I'm going to move the variable to one side. I'm going to subtract this positive 8x from both sides. I'm left with negative 4 equals, well, 8x minus 8 equals 0. I'm left with negative 4. So my variable in this case completely goes away. And when this happens in math, we can say one of two things. If these two numbers would have been different, we would say, oh, there's no solution, cannot be solved. Since these two numbers are exactly the same, we say there are infinite solutions, meaning basically these two equations are exactly the same. So infinite solutions. Pretty rare that happens though. Let's go ahead and look at number 3. So again, I don't have any parentheses, but I do have some like terms. 4n plus 4n is 8n minus 2 equals 7n minus 3. I'm going to move my variable to one side. Negative 3 equals n minus 2. And then I add 2 to both sides, and equals negative 1. After you do your equations, you are going to find the missing side of each triangle. So you might notice by looking at these that these are all right triangles. Whenever I have a missing side of a right triangle, I use the Pythagorean theorem, which means a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So A, B, and C represent the three sides of my right triangle. A and B are the legs. C is the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is the longest side of the triangle, and it's always across from the right angle. So the first thing you're going to do is label your sides. So I know this has to be C. I'm going to say x is A and then 6 is B. And then I'm just going to plug it in. So I don't know this value, so I'm just going to leave that as a squared plus b is 6 squared equals 10 squared. Okay, and then I'm going to do a squared plus, well, 6 squared is 36 equals 100. And then I'm just going to solve. So I'm going to subtract 36 from both sides. A squared equals 100, take away 30 is 70, take away another 6 is 64. So I get a squared equals 64. Or another way to write a squared would be a times a equals 64. So what number multiplied by itself will give me 64? Oh, 8. So a equals 8. So right here, this missing side would be 8 yards. And I already know that's probably right because remember, C is our longest side. So 10 yards is our longest side. So whatever we get for x has to be less than 10. Another way to do this step when you get to a squared equals 64 is in your calculator, you just take the square root. So I would take the square root of a squared, which is a, square root of 64 is 8. For all these problems, you will solve exactly the same way because for each one, you are missing the leg and you know the hypotenuse. So all of your work should look like this for every single problem. And then after you do that, you're going to do a review of what we did last week. So remember, to determine if two triangles are congruent, we can use side, angle, side, angle, side, angle, side, 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 and angle, angle, side. So guys, if ever I see anything like this, so this is an X, right? The lines are intersecting. The angles that are created, like this angle and this angle, they're congruent because they're in the middle of the intersection and they're across from each other. By the same token, this angle and this angle are also congruent. So when I look here, oh, I have intersecting lines. That means this angle is congruent to this angle. These triangles are congruent because of angle, side, angle. Number 18, I see the same thing. I see intersecting lines, so I know that these two angles are congruent. And this would be angle, angle, side. Angle, angle, side. So they're congruent because of angle, angle, side. And then when you get to number 21, okay, so you're solving for x, so you're adding up these 3 degrees. And when we ever add 3 degrees in a triangle, they add up to 180, absolutely. And then you have to solve.